Thank you for joining us here this evening. My name is Omar, and I am your host from Vancouver. And right beside me in my screen, you see John Shaughnessy. He's going to be our guest here this evening. Many of you probably have heard of him, and many of you probably didn't. But after tonight, you're all going to know who John Shaughnessy is, because that's what we're here to do. Anyways, tonight's topic is going to be fantastic. But before I jump into that, I just want to quickly let you guys know that we've got a petition going on for the Standing Stones of Australia. And we'd really appreciate it if you guys can follow the link that's going to be provided for you in the comments. It's going to be pinned. So after the show, or just right before, I guess after the show would be best, follow the link and please go and sign that petition. Share it to your timeline, to any groups that you belong to. The site is extremely important. Not only does it belong to Australia, but it belongs to the people of the world. And the establishment wants to come in and develop it, and we can't have that. So show your support. This is something that you can do, and you can make a difference. So go and do that. I implore you to do that. So with that being said, on March the 20th, we've got a webinar coming up, 7 speakers, for details to follow here after this show this evening. And of course, tomorrow we've got Ildi Baudi, who's going to be interviewing Ali Alangar, a tour guide from Egypt who works at the Karnak temple. So there's going to be a lot of cool images that you guys have never ever seen, and he's going to be talking about stuff like that with us tomorrow. So now I'm just going to be quiet because I can just go on. I'm going to bring my guest on here this evening, Mr. John Shaughnessy. He's a lecturer, an inventor, an author, a theorist, just pretty much shorten it up. He's a Renaissance man that really has everything quite well versed in his mind, and he understands what's going on. So he's going to enlighten us here this evening. And so tune in, pull out your notepads, take some notes, because I know I'm going to, and as I always do. So welcome, John, to Watchers Talk. Thank you for giving us your time here this evening to give us a little education.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. And, enjoy your your pre show talk there. It's good to meet you finally, and it sounds like we're all on the same rail. We're going the right direction, and it's just there's a lot of discoveries out there. There's a lot of changes coming down the pipeline, and it's a good time to be alive. There's a lot of great stuff going on. And for me, I got into, the paranormal way, when I was younger. Some, events, paranormal events happened to me, and some psychic stuff. I think everybody has like some psychic episodes, or some reoccurring things that say, oh, how did that happen? How did I know that? Or things of that nature. And then, a little, just to give you a little background, I spent 3 years in the Navy, and we were in the, out in one particular time, we had, a real strange occurrence. We were out in the Bermuda Triangle, and it was smooth water, not a cloud in the sky. It was about 100 degrees. The water's like glass. The horizon, you couldn't tell where the horizon began and the water ended, or vice versa. And we're a pretty big military ship, and we just lost the load. Like, we just went dead in the water. All the electricity just stopped. There was no power. The backup generators didn't kick on. I mean, it is a pretty sophisticated piece of equipment. And after that, I was like, whoa, what's going on here? So I started reading up on the Bermuda Triangle, and anything I get my hands on the paranormal, books. That was the only place you could really get into this stuff. You couldn't go to YouTube back in the 80s, in the late 70s. So that being said, I got hooked into it, and the years go by, and I got into Einstein's theory of relativity. Gravity always fascinated me. I was just always fascinated by gravity. you know, I used to just sit back and space out in a rainstorm and just try to follow a raindrop down, you know, and just, you know, just be amazed at what was going on behind that raindrop, you know, just coming down to earth, and was getting out there. So yeah, years go by, and I go walking into my living room. This is where I kind of get into the pyramid stuff. I go walking into my living room. Somebody left the TV running, and Makio Aku, the physicist out of New York, he's all over the place. Great author, great mind, really pushing the laws, you know, the physics community in the right direction. Great devil's advocate on a lot of things coming out of CERN and a few other places. So, I did a free fall into the lazy boy, and the last question he said before he went into commercial break was, "We still don't know what these pyramids are doing," you know. And I sank, and I was doing a free fall, you know, 0G into the lazy boy. I sank, and then I just looked over at the globe. I just had the epiphany. I said, "Geez, wonder what's on the opposite side of the Giza Plateau, the pyramids, and you know, latitude wise." And so I'm looking at the globe, and the globe's looking at me. Commercial was horrible. So I get up. I made the big 10-foot walk to the globe, spun it around, you know, found Egypt, and then, which I had been in Egypt a couple of times in the military. And then, so, you know, get through the Suez Canal, the Gulf of, the Persian Gulf, the Straits of Hormuz, and then, you know, a lot of places. And, you know, lo and behold, the Hawaiian hotspot was 180 degrees, approximately the same latitude, right on that side, you know, on the opposite side of it. You know, with my gravity, you know, obsession with gravity, and you know, trying to manipulate gravity. I was always interested in doing experiments on my own on pulse gravity manipulations with apothecary scales, you know, making things lighter, heavier. Just, you know, just doing a lot of work with gyroscopes and the gyroscopic effect, magnetism, you name it. I mean, it's just into everything. So superconductivity, and working with liquid nitrogen, playing around with you know, 1 Kelvin, 271 degrees below zero, and all sorts of stuff. But anyways, so, well, that's weird. You know, we got this connection here. So you know, the brain kicks on. You know, it's like most people got random search. You know, they get random memory search, and you just tuck that away, and then 3-4 days later, you know, I wake up in the fetal position in my bed, and I'm like, okay, well, what else is lining up with other pyramids? There's other large pyramids on the planet, thousands, right? Hundreds of large ones. So I go to the Pyramid of the Sun down in Mexico, 180 degrees away, lines up with Mount Sageria, which has a dormant volcano, and it's got a magma plug in it, and it's got claws that rival the size of the Sphinx at its base. And the magma plug is shaped like a elongated skull, you know, to make it even more interesting. And I said, oh, that's strange. Not a lot's known about, you know, where these claws came from, and you know, what's going on there. So then I go off to the Shen pyramids in China. They lined up with the Bermuda hotspot, or Bermuda Triangle, or Bermuda Island rather, and that's made up of 2 super calderas. Okay, so there's 3 big ones, you know, and then I get on to, you know, 3 or 4 other ones, large pyramids, the largest pyramids on Earth, El Dante, El Tigre, and they were lining up with the Nicobar Islands out there in the Indian Ocean, over by the Sumatra subduction zone. So after about 100 alignments here, okay, I'm not going to go to every one, but after about 100, I said, okay, there's a connection between pyramids and volcanoes, okay? So moving down that road, I get into the gravity. I said, well, what's the connection between these 2, you know, objects, really? And it's you know, the only thing that come to mind was gravity. So, to back that up, to back up the theory of gravity as being the connection between a volcano and the pyramids is, you see it every day. You know, it's the moon's orbit around on the Earth, and you have a high tide on the moon side of the planet, and you have a high tide on the moonless side of the planet. So there's a pull and tug of, I call it the gravity bubble on the planet, and on the moon side, you're pulling the gravitational bubble towards it, or the field, if you will, lack of, you know, better term than bubble. But By doing that, you lower the gravitational field on the opposite side of the planet, and that gives you the high tide. Okay. So moving along, get into the Egyptian lore and everything. I just comb through everything from every speck of data I could find from the Vedas, Sumerians, Anunnaki, the Egyptian, lore and everything like that. And then, I basically come to terms with pyramids are lenses. They're gravitational lenses. And the reason they've got to be built so big is because the gravitational force, although is strong, it's not that powerful. So you have to create large pyramids to lens the gravitational field in the center line, and by doing that, you offset the gravitational field on the other side of the planet. So just like we see with the moon, how the moon is capable of creating a high tide on the opposite side where it's not. So. All right, so I got data, I got facts, I got physical, observable evidence that can't be denied. You can't argue and say, this isn't happening because you see it every day. So, moving forward, I put some formulas together, some mass formulas on gravitational displacement that pyramids, mountains, volcanoes, fall into a category above the ellipsoid or above the sea level. And I get some mathematicians. They slap me around a bit. Go back and forth. Very painful. Very, very painful to balance my formulas. And I'm arguing to have this in it, and they're not liking it. But eventually, I got my way. I just had to plug in the data into different locations of the formula to balance it all out. So it's basically, it's a degree of the, in radii of the pyramid. So, 52, let's go with everybody's Great Pyramid of Giza, 52 degrees, slightly below that. So you multiply that by the mass, which is 6 million tons. And then, you multiply that by the angle of the moon. And then you multiply it by, square it with speed of light to give it an energy. And you divide it by distance and between the two objects, the pyramid and the volcano, and then you multiply that by the what do you call it, the gravitational constant, and then you come up with a number. It's a big number, So there's two indexes in the top part of the formula. It's the degree of angle of the mass, which is the pyramid, volcano. This works on volcanoes, mountains, pyramids, anything that's, above the sea level. And then the other index is the angle of the moon over it, because it's the angle of the moon that is the gravitational energy, the gravitational force that you're trying to quantify here as far as displacing mass. So anyways, going back, okay, what are they doing all this for? What's going on here? Why are we going through all this trouble of making these massive pyramids? And some of them were carved mountaintops into pyramids just to get that lensing effect. The Matterhorn in Switzerland.
Yeah, we see that in Tibet as well, isn't it?
What's that?
In Tibet, we see that as well, don't we? Yeah.
Just about every mountaintop, every large mountaintop on the planet has been shaped into, a trapezoid or a pyramid shape, shape. So I go, okay, so we get into the Native Americans. I forget which tribe was the. I forget. Well, it'll come to me later. But anyways, their description is that these pyramids were built to balance the planet off. So whether they don't say weight, they just use the term balance. So. Let's go with that. So I go with that, and then okay, we're balancing things off. And what do you want to control on a planet like Earth? That was my main thought. Like, what do we need to really control? What are we missing here? And then what's below the surface? Magma. Magma currents, tectonic plates. That you want to take a specific interest in tectonic plate control, and balancing things off by controlling magma with the moon's gravitational energy force. So the one of the most remarkable alignments on the planet that's still active today is the Giza Plateau pyramids and the Hawaiian hotspot. And the amazing thing about the Hawaiian hotspot, it's a constant erupting volcano. It's constantly dribbling out magma. So it doesn't build up pressure like natural volcanoes build up pressure, then they blast off, kill everything for 200-300 miles around, and they seal up, and you don't hear from them 1,000 years or a couple hundred years or whatever. So the beauty of Hawaiian hotspot is it's able to stay open and relieve that pressure out there in the middle of the Pacific. It's a huge plate out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So that's like the Earth's, I call it the Earth's relief valve. So you have that going on. So, okay, so, back up a little bit. So now we got a reason. Okay, we're plugging a reason into these massive geoengineering projects here. I got a helicopter over my head. I guess they're
yeah, I was hearing that.
Black Ops. So anyways, so there's a reason. You can call it terraforming, you can call it geoengineering, whatever. But these things, these massive pyramids around the globe are actually doing something. They're actually performing, an engineering purpose to basically quiet the planet down, and control the magma currents out there in the middle of the Pacific. Now, the Pacific Ocean is surrounded by the Ring of Fire. It's the most active, volcanic, place, volcanism on the planet. And right in the middle is the Hawaiian hotspot. So we'll step back and say, okay, I want to lower the volcanism on the Ring of Fire. How can I do that? We'll fix the pyramids out in the Giza Plateau so they lens more. They're more capable of displacing more magma, and you can push out more magma out of the Hawaiian hotspot, and that'll relieve the pressure of the Ring of Fire. Okay, it'll bring it down a notch. The Ring of Fire, unbeknownst to the scientific community, I think has a lot to do with El Nino and La Nina. It's all, it's a mystery. Why is it kind of, well, what's going on out there? Well, you've got these massive volcanoes underwater around the whole Pacific Ocean. That's definitely heating up the ocean and causing a play on the currents and causing these, over temperatures and, cooling episodes. So it all plays a integral part of the ocean conveyors in the North and South Pacific. So, again, I'm just going out trying to figure out what the mechanics are behind these pyramids around the globe. So I came up with a simplistic, I try to bring everything back down to the street level because that's where I'm from. So come back to Earth, get out of the, don't leave the planet. Like a lot of great physicists that go off the planet, they're out there in, the end of the universe and, come back with math and everything else. Well, yeah, it's not helping us here. We need to, what's going on Earth?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to know how big the the proton is, and which direction the universe is going. It's all good stuff, but we need to figure out what's going on here, and so I started to take some some measurements, get out there and look around and say, okay, what's going on with these pyramids? Every place a pyramid's built, the ground that the pyramid's on is higher than the the surrounding ground and the surrounding area, rather, grade. So what's going on here? Well, if a pyramid is lensing the gravitational field into a tight focal point, and the moon is pulling, it's tugging on it, it's going to raise the ground that it was built on. It's going to shore up that ground. Now, that evidence is pretty intense in the little peninsula of Central America. There's 300, 400 pyramids in that little tiny peninsula, and it's a very, very strategic place between the two largest ocean currents on the planet. You got the Atlantic Ocean currents in the North and South Atlantic. And then you have the Pacific currents, the North and South Pacific. You have two massive currents there. Well, if you had that little land strip disappear, go underwater or whatever, you would crash these two currents that are basically keeping warm temperate water going north and south and allowing people and animals and life to exist in places on Earth right now, today, that ordinarily wouldn't if you didn't have these two large conveyors in operation. So, those pyramids, in effect, were built on that little peninsula of land. You know, I don't know what it is, 800 miles long or maybe 1,000, but there's a lot of them in strategic places, and it raised that landmass, Central America, to keep these two currents separated and functional, to go through the long term until we go back into ice building mode and the oceans start to go down again. But, water still rising, but you still have a lot of mass there. So that was one particular one. And doing some research on some native cultures, indigenous cultures, and they had some tribes had a habit of building mountains. Like, they would take stones and put them in a big pile, and so they build, they're crude, but they would build these mounds of stone over time, and their understanding was it increased the groundwater tables. They didn't come out and say the moon did it, and they didn't come up with the formula, but they were asked, like, what do you do? What are we doing this for? And so it brings the water tables up in the earth. So we build mountains. I mean, it's a makeshift mountain or a pyramid, whatever you want to call it, a mound. And so they held on to the knowledge. The tribes of the world, the indigenous tribes of the world, held on to the knowledge. So that's where I get my, okay, you're going in the right direction, okay. So that's the second primary use of small pyramids, or the primary use of small pyramids, building small pyramids, is to raise the groundwater tables beneath you. Okay, so you got that's the small one. Intermediate sized pyramids would raise the land, along with large pyramids. And large pyramids, according to my research, was used to punch holes in tectonic plates. Literally punch a hole through a tectonic plate, and leave it there as a relief valve, or have a constant relieving volcano like you have with the Giza Plateau and the Hawaiian hotspot. So that being said, those are the three particular reasons for pyramid building that
interesting
that I could see. Yeah. Stabilizing a small island, raising an island, But
I find it really interesting that you have Egypt and Hawaii. Have you researched the pyramid in Antarctica? And on the other end, we have Iceland, which would also work as a valve, right? Because it was started off as something small, and it's turned into an island of its own, a volcanic island.
Yeah, like I've researched Antarctica. Like below Antarctica, I discovered, unbeknownst to the geophysics community, that the landmass under the ice of Antarctica is shaped like a hexagon, so a 6-point hexagon. And just like the poles of Jupiter and Saturn, you have the hexagon in the South Pole. And so, with that being said, I said, okay,
there's a hexagon on the moon as well, as you pointed out in one of your videos, right?
Yeah, well, I used the hexagon just to outline the shape of Khonsu's face. Mm-hmm. It's on the surface of the Earth, so it's on the surface of the moon, up in the Mare Imbrium section of the moon. But if you look at Antarctica, a lot of it's still covered. But what I can see there's a volcano ridge on one side, and the exact opposite latitude. Now this is great because you got the pyramidal shaped mountaintops on the other side, 180 degrees away. So they're on the same continent. So they're lowering the gravitational field, from one to the other. They're in alignment with each other. So, again, it's from my understanding, the significance of having a hexagon landmass built. Let's go back, like, you're a planet. I call them planet builders. Modified planet builders. The light beings, God, whatever. You know, what's the significance of having landmass in Antarctica and the North Pole? You just have water, really. There's nothing really to speak of for landmass up there in the Arctic Circle. So in the Antarctic Circle is a landmass. Well, what I realized, come to find out or understand, was through studying the Djed of all places. You know, we got into the Djed pretty deep, but I kind of knew there was a hexagon there before I even found it. But that's another story, another video. But staying on point here, the hexagon in the Arctic Circle, Antarctica, is in effect a lens. It's a gravitational lens, and you have electrons, gravitons, muons, nuons. I mean, there's so many subatomic particle things flowing around, but the big ones are graviton and electrons, and they basically lock in the magnetic field. They prevent the magnetic field from swapping this landmass up there. It's a giant pyramid or a lens. So it reduces the flow to singularity. It slows the flow down. Subatomic particles coming into the planet at that particular pole, whereas in the North Pole they come in a lot faster. So you would have I remember reading a physics paper, and they were theorizing that the electron and the graviton repel each other as they flow into the planet in the North Pole, and they bond as they come in from the South Pole, and then they go out in the latitudes. They release into their own separate properties and go out into the latitudes. That's why you're actually lighter on the equator, because of the subatomic flow of particles flowing out of the Earth at the equatorial region of the planet. But that's going off the astrophysics here. But getting back to the pyramids, yeah, they're balanced. I mean, there's a balance between the pyramids. Again, I'm just constantly throwing out the observable evidence. Is the pyramids or what I call carved mountains that look like pyramids, trapezoids, that lens the moon's gravitational field. Although the moon doesn't go all the way up there, it's still pulling. You know, at the 30-degree latitude, 28-degree latitude, it's still pulling a subatomic flow through these land masses, or pyramids or mountains or what have you. Now, the other thing that I discovered was on top of pyramids lining up with volcanoes and having some kind of actual functionality, I realized that land masses, continents were lining up with continents. Okay, so Australia lines up with South America. The Himalayas line up with North America, you know, the Himalayan mountains. The Mount Kailash lines up with Yellowstone. You know, to control Yellowstone, you would go into the Giza Plateau to lower the pressure building up in that supercaldera to prevent a massive supercaldera eruption. You would fix the pyramids in the Giza Plateau, and that would, in effect, lower the gravitational field out in the Hawaiian hotspot and allow more magma to be released out of there, and that, in effect, would lower the pressure under Yellowstone. So, I mean, these are all like you know, high advanced, you know, geoengineering stuff. The mainstream is mainstream's just mainstream. Really quantified exactly what they are, but they're trucking along anyways. But you know, well, I can't put them down, because whatever they did, they gave me, and I could, you know, I built off of whatever they had. But anyways, sometimes you get frustrated, you know. So there's like equipment left over from the last age of our intelligence. Like we rise, you know, going out and you know, philosophy of theosophy. I mean, we as human beings on this planet, we've been down here. If you're a Michael Cremo student, a student of Michael Cremo's work, and the evidence is just in your face. I mean, there's no denying it. I mean, humans have been down here for 500,000 years, and you know, but modern humans. So, and we ascend to a high level of intellect, technology, spirituality, and then we decline. You know, we drop off. It's just like the seasons of the 4 seasons on Earth. You have seasons with humanity. You have seasons with life forms on the planet. Every life form that's been on the planet that's gone extinct will come back eventually. You know, it's just everything's in diatom shape. It'll come back eventually again, and they'll be, you know, they'll come back and rule, just like the dinosaurs will be back and we'll be gone and we'll come back later. You know, so it's a big cycle, you know, of life form on this planet that was built by, you know, the gods, really. I mean, it's just a perfect place to be. And it's just these pesky humans causing all the trouble, you know.
Yeah.
So,
speaking of that,
yeah.
What do you think about the Pangaea, the supercontinent in the middle of the planet, and everything else is broken off from that?
Yeah.
To create the continents that we have today.
Yeah, I'm not a big Pangaea person. I think it was great, you know, observational science at the time when they said, oh, you know, the continents look like they fit back together. Well, at the time they came up with that, and kudos for the the student that came up with that, and mainstream science grabbed it. You know, I said, hey, this is good. It's better than what we got now. Let's grab this thing. You know. You know, so they, you know, brought out everything back together, Pangaea, and then, you know, everything expanded. But in my mind, as a you know, geotheoretical physicist, you know, anybody, you know, any kind of you know, science can say, like, that's not right. I mean, if you had all the mass of all the continents on one side of the planet, it would just rip itself apart. I mean, especially traveling at 1,100 miles an hour to, you know, 10,000, you know, 84 miles an hour. It would
tip over.
It would tip over. The centrifugal force of that landmass would never overcome, you know, the volcanic activity that they claim causes the continents to separate and flow out. The energy, just the forces are just not there, and to me, I think it would liberate itself and create another moon. It would just fly right off the planet. So I think the planets are shaped by gravity. Gravity, in effect, has an inherent capability of self-balancing. It has a mechanism. It has a self-balancing mechanism. You can see it throughout the universe. And it goes the same as for the planet. Just like I said, you get the moonless high tide, you get a moon high tide. You got a mountain on one side, you get a mountain on the other side. So, like I said, the you know, continents line up with continents, and so on and so forth. So the physical evidence is just a huge wave of my discoveries that I'm bringing out into the world, and you know, they're catching on a little at a time. I'm working on papers and things of that nature, but my thing is, like, my personal understanding of Pangaea, like, they didn't have the pictures they have today of the what do you call it, the tectonic plates in the center of the ocean there, the sea mounts, you know, where the plates divide.
In the Atlantic Ocean?
Yeah, in the Atlantic Ocean,
yeah.
The Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
They didn't have a picture that scene. This is the Atlantic's a great picture because it goes from the
south to north.
It goes right up, and
that's right.
The important thing is that particular plate, that particular seam is the exact shape of the continents in between. So it's the plate, it's the expanding plate. One expands, goes east, the other one goes west. It's that expansion off of that center line, that plate boundaries, those mid-ocean mount plate boundaries, is what causes the shapes of the continents to look like they're together, look like they were at one time together. It's
kind of like a snake in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, just curves.
Right.
And
and so that mid-ocean ridge mimics both angles and shapes of say Africa and you know, what do you call it, the Americas, on one side of the Atlantic, the other side of the Atlantic. Same thing on the Pacific Ocean, you know, except that particular mid-ocean ridge goes up like from the South Pole up to like maybe a little bit above the equator. And because of the geoengineering with the Hawaiian hotspot, they punched a hole in that tectonic plate up there in the North Pacific. well, it's the Central Pacific, but that kind of that doesn't have like a real clear boundary from north to south. It's there, but it's shifted off a little bit, like about a 500-mile gap between the two as it goes north. But I think that's because of the Hawaiian hotspot has punched that hole through the tectonic plate. So I got some videos on my geophysics on the missing energy behind tectonic plates, and the mainstream science think it's all volcanism, is pressure in the earth, and it's it's more than that. It's the constant expansion and contraction that we go through in the ice age and the interglacial period. Like in the ice age, your poles are coming down, you're squishing down on the poles, and the equatorial region is growing. So what that does is it takes pressure off of those plate boundaries that we're talking about, the continent plate boundaries and the mid-ocean ridges, and more mass flows out. So in effect, these plates actually grow. So when we go to 104,000 years for the ice age, we get into the interglacial period, then the poles melt and they rise back up. So you're going from pumpkin shape to ball shape, spherical shape. And what happens is those plates push into each other. They just go in like your fingers. They just go in like this. They rise up. Now, geophysics community will tell you that all the land masses around the globe are fairly new. They're rising up in the last, they can do their measurements, carbon dating, and the other dating techniques. And they can tell you that a lot of the mountain ranges are going up higher and higher and higher. And this is what's going on right now. Al Gore, listen up. All right, so. Anyway, that's what's going on. As the poles rise, the plates are like fingers. They're just pushing in on each other, because all those, they widened up during the ice age. Now they're crunching together and they're lifting the mountain ranges up. And the Himalayas are going up an inch every year or whatever.
That's right. The Rockies are growing as well, they say.
Yep. And so it's all part of the constant flex and release. Now, as soon as we go into ice building mode, that'll stop. Those mountains will actually sink, and the plates will grow again, and the same process will happen in another 100,000 years. So I put a video out. I just put a video. There's so much stuff. I think it's easy for me just to put videos out. I got a lot of papers just to, because people around me going, when are you going to get this published? What's going on? When are we going to get, what this stuff sounds like it should be, on the, coming out in the journal every month or whatever, Journal Nature. I've tried a couple of times getting some of this stuff out. I keep screwing up using the word pyramid in my descriptions. So you say the P word and they go running for cover.
They don't want to be challenged because they keep telling us it's a tomb.
Yeah, exactly. You're going up against the narrative, It's like,
that's
right. God, man, you're going up against everything.
It's that dogma that they're stuck with, and they're just not going to let go.
They're just hell bent on just keeping it the status quo. Like, they get out of the store and, they got us the mindset, the control of the people that run everything. They got us like, when you're younger, you get on the 5 and 10 store. So you get out and buy a bag of Army Men for like 50 cents in a plastic bag. That's what we are. They're taking us off the shelf and, let's go do a war over here. Let's rob this guy's gold over here. Let's, go expand this empire and take over here. And that's all we are to them. We're just we're finger puppets, So
yeah, not even a commodity anymore.
They're not interested in hearing the truth, So, but it's a slow process. I got, I don't have a lot of resources, but I just put the stuff out there. And grassroots is actually the best way anyways. I think it's, grassroots. And, you get a kid in like at college and high school and say, hey, wait a minute now. This John Shaughnessy guy says this is what's going on, and, maybe, get the teacher to, hey, well, where's this guy from? What's going on? Do some research that way. I got some friends in the neighborhood, and they asked me to help out their kids with homework. Now, I helped out my own kids when I was young, and I always got a letter back from school. We're not teaching the kids this stuff right now. It's too intense, I said, well, it's the truth. Yeah, we know it's the truth. But we don't want to teach them the truth, So
I do that with my son constantly too. He'll come home and he'll be like, hey, I learned this today. And I'll be like, well, are you sure this is what you learned today? How about this? And, I challenge his thinking to keep reminding him that whatever he's learning in school, don't take it at face value. Go out and research it and learn it for yourself. So when the exams come, you can really hit them with the truth, and then we'll see how they react to it. So I've been challenging them for years now. I've got a question here from Clarence Mitchell. He's asking, does this affect the wobble the Earth has? I guess I'm thinking that he's talking about the pull and push between the Earth and the Moon.
You're talking about precession, like the precession?
I think so. Just the question just says, does this affect the wobble the Earth has? I'm thinking that
the pyramids or
I think that's what he's getting at.
I mean, it's a divine design. Now, the beautiful thing about the wobble is it's actually our only clock on Earth. If we didn't have the wobble, we wouldn't know what was going. We wouldn't have the house, the zodiacs. We wouldn't have, the Mayan clock would be useless. I mean, that is a huge timepiece. It's the biggest timepiece on the planet. The wobble is the timepiece. Without it, we don't have any idea of, the millennia we're going through. The zodiac houses, the sun would rise up in the same zodiac house, but for thousands and tens of thousands, millions of years. So it was designed purposely, and a lot of these pyramids that aren't really like, they're in mountaintops or in regions, they're not punching holes through tectonic plates, although a lot of them could line up with volcanoes. Not every volcano has a pyramid, but every pyramid has a volcano, you know what I mean? So in alignment to it. But that being said, some of these things could have been set up, these pyramids could have been set up to give us that wobble, which is very important. The wobble, the precession has 4 seasons. There's actually seasons that you can track by the ice ages. If you look at the ice samples for the last 100,000 years, you'll see a staircase shape, seasonal effect of winter, spring, summer, fall, and winter, spring, summer, and fall. Sorry, but you'll see that, and then you'll see a drop, and it's because of the wobble and the actual orientation of the Earth to the sun. It actually gives us seasons in the middle of the ice age. Not so much on the interglacial periods. I mean, in the interglacial period, like right now, we're in the winter of the wobble of the interglacial period, which we're coming to an end, close to coming to an end. So I guess I would have to say yes, but most people don't understand that that's the only, we don't have any reference of moving, other than like, we know we're going towards the great attractor at the end of the what do you call it? The end of the universe, the known universe that we're in, where everything's going one direction. They can figure out, they figured out the backdrop radiation satellite they put up in the 1980s. So, it's like we got to go with what they're telling us on some of these things. It's not a real hard evidence experiment, because if you think about it, we're in the Milky Way galaxy. Everything is relative to us is spinning. So we don't have anything to lock in on and say, hey, we're going this direction, we're going that direction. They actually just had to put a satellite up and measure the background radiation passing the Earth. And that's where they came to the conclusion that we're going that way, which is we're going the direction of
counterclockwise, and we're moving counterclockwise. The galaxy is.
Yeah. But the whole universe and our galaxy and all the other galaxies are going in the direction of what's that zodiac house? Leo? Yeah, we're going in the direction of Leo, which is, the irony there is the Sphinx, the lion. So that's the, I'll throw out a little tidbit here. I try not to put out too much, but because I'll be reading about it. It'll be somebody else's idea tomorrow. But we're actually traveling.
Isn't that true?
We're actually traveling in the direction of the house of Leo, the lion, which is the Sphinx's, the lion zodiac house. So there's another reason the Sphinx was put together and pointed at that particular zodiac house. Is we're going in that direction. So it's not like it's just looking at its zodiac house. No, it's the direction the whole universe is going. The known universe is all traveling to the attractor, the great attractor. So wherever that is, but kind of going off topic there, but yeah, I would have to say yes, it definitely has an effect on the precession, the wobble. So, yeah.
Now, a lot of people have said that the moon is a spaceship that was brought in here into our solar system. And then there's the other one where some people say that the moon was part of the Pacific Basin and it just kind of blew off. And some others say that the Earth captured this rogue comet coming in and crashed into the Earth billions of years ago and kind of coalesced and built that symbiotic relationship. Like, what's your opinion, like, of all these moon theories that are out there on how the moon came about? And because you were just saying earlier that if all the landmass was on one side, it would just get flung right off. So could it be that something like that was happening in the Pacific Basin and it just kind of blew off and there's our moon?
Well, anything's possible, but because of the absolute, I don't know, impossibility. I mean, it's like you hear a lot of physicists say it's easier to explain that the moon doesn't exist than to account for all these anomalies that this thing actually has. Being the same size as the sun and the atmosphere, it's the right distance away from us to give the perfect tides.
The eclipse as well.
Eclipses, the eclipses, the Metonic cycle. I wrote a book recently with my co-author Wendy Salter. It's on the moon, so I'm a big moon guy. I'm out there with the moon. It's definitely. I mean, my personal opinion is, this whole solar system was designed by intelligent life. It just did not come into existence. The solar system, the planets, the moons around the planets, everything was put in place to create this perfect solar system. Now you'll have your astrophysicists, and they're out there with their telescopes and they're finding exoplanets, or they're finding other solar systems, and they're finding planets in the sweet spot, but none of them have moons. The moon is the precursor to life. I mean, it's anybody that's worth their salt in the theoretical physics community is going to tell you that if we didn't have the moon, we'd be a big pond. I mean, this place would reek to high heaven. I mean, you wouldn't want to live down here without the tides.
Our moon is pretty big too, compared to some other moons. Compared to the size of the planet, right? It's quite large.
I think it's the second largest one in the solar system, if I'm not mistaken. And its gravitational field should be stronger, but it's not. Its speed around us is perfect. It's rotational speed. So, and this theory that that the moon's leaving the Earth's atmosphere, it's moving away an inch every 10
That's right.
Whatever. That's not true at all, because like I said earlier, as the shape of the Earth, the equatorial region, the oceans bulge, and the moon is an integral part of the ocean. So as the oceans grow, so too do the distance of the moon. Okay, so it's going to go out further as the oceans rise up. Now, the flip side of that is when we come back into the ice age, and the oceans start to come down, it's going to pull the moon in closer. Now, the moon is the driver of the interglacial and the ice ages based on the ice water ratios. But before I go off into that, I would say it's of divine design. This thing was put in place, and its structure is built by intelligence.
Interesting you say that. I read an article.
Just like the Earth is of intelligent design. It's got the right components to make it the Earth, just like the moon has the components. And in the book, we both Wendy and I had agreed that the moon was actually the egg that brought the moon's moon. There was a moon on the moon. That
the two moon theory.
But it was the precursor of life. It came into the ocean and gave the diatoms into the ocean, was sprung up and created all the life on the planet. So we got our own Genesis. We got a competing Genesis story here. With a little bit more science behind it.
The book is called "There's Something Strange About the Moon."
No, it's There Is Something About the Moon.
There's something about the moon.
I don't know if I can get it in there, but probably see it.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah,
there you go. That's available on Amazon and Lulu Books. It's in Kindle form right now, but if you want hardcover, you can go to Lulu Books. It is. I'll give you a website at the end of the cast. Yeah. So, but it's definitely it's not. The moon just didn't fling off the planet, or the big whack theory that the mainstream has. Big asteroid came in, hit the Earth, and it just blew out and happened to stop at a perfect distance. And by the way, it made itself perfectly round. And
that too.
The images. There's actually
at one time it would have had to be in spinning.
Right. It just defies logic. It's not going to reach escape velocity, and it become in the orbit that the moon is. It's just the odds are off the charts, and it's just too much perfection. The deeper and deeper you get into the physics, the more and more, Einstein, Tesla, they just blown away by the anomalies. It just can't just all just happen, just by chance. It's just beyond the odds. The odds are just off the charts. So.
Let me ask you a question here real quick before we jump into another rabbit hole. There's the moon looks different on both its sides. The side that we can't see is really mountainous and jaggedy, and then the side that we see almost appears to be like flat plains. Why is that? Why is that one side all mountainous and rocky and the other side is just like prairie land, pretty much?
That's actually geoengineered to perfection. The ancient Greeks named it, the Sea of Rains, and there's a lot. They call them oceans. I thought they were oceans. The dark spots were oceans up there. Come to find out, there's actually 5 images on the moon, and 2 of them are the zodiac symbols: Cancer, the crab, and the Tropic of Cancer. Down here, we have it in the northern hemisphere. And then you have Capricorn, the goatfish, which is on the bottom part of the moon. So this is so what's going on here? You got the northern part of the moon's got the crab, southern part of the moon's got the zodiac house of Capricorn, and then you have a perfectly shaped face of a man in the mare imbrium section of the moon, and then between these two zodiac symbols, crab and the goatfish, which is Tropic of Capricorn, Tropic of Cancer, there's a C clip like you have on the planet. And actually, I don't know if you can see that, but there's actually a C clip that actually has dark dots in it that replicate the degree tilt that the Earth goes through during the interglacial and the ice ages. And along with that, on top of the crab, you have the cobra. And there's a tail that goes up the left-hand side. The cobra's tail goes up the left-hand side of the moon all the way up to the cobra head. You can go check out my videos on YouTube, John Shaughnessy, and I got I got a telescope behind me. I took the pictures of a lot of these images from that telescope behind me with the blue lens.
I think what you're talking about, isn't that in Shaughnessy's law of gravity? I believe you're talking about that in there.
Yeah. Well, that Shaughnessy's law of gravity is with the moon. You mean?
Yeah.
No, these are different. These images are. I remember I was telling you that a couple of topics ago, talking about precession.
Yeah.
And we have perception was built in, purposely designed into the planet so we can have a semblance of time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the moon and the images on the moon that face us, because we have the dark side of the moon. Actually, it's the dark side of the moon that faces us. The side that doesn't, that we don't see is all bright. There's no images at all. So there again, it's like, well, wait a minute. You know, we have purposely dark patches on the surface that we see, and it's completely, you know, ragged, jaggedy, nothing on that side. So this, in my book, we discovered, and we put down our discovery and our theories that the orientation of these symbols on the moon, the Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, a man's face, which we believe to be Khonsu, because he was, you know, the Egyptian law there, moon gave the moon to Khonsu to drive. So he's the picture, and he actually resembles the bust or the statues that you see in Egypt. But that all being said, what right now, if you get into my book, the Moon Book, a little bit, we're in the age of man, which is during the interglacial period. So as we go into the ice age, the images, the rotation of the moon actually changes. It's a clock. So you'll go into the age of Cobra, which is a huge icon in Egyptian, steles, hieroglyphs, history. And you go into the age of Cobra and Crab, okay, during the Ice Age. So it's scavenger time now. Right now, we're in the prosperous, the age of Man and Capricorn. The seas are rising, and it's the age of man. So once it rotates back out, man's on the run. You know, we're a hunter-gatherer. We're going back to the caves. And we forget everything just to come back out and remember everything, because, you know, this is just the way they designed it. The planet was built with the human mind in design. Okay, so it's like this whole thing was taken into consideration when they put the moon, the earth, and the solar system together. So you can have this amazing existence. Your soul can have this amazing. It's like you're not in a physical body. Your soul is having a physical experience. So
this is the avatar.
Right.
This is the avatar of our natural state. Our natural state is energy, right. and we take this avatar form to experience the physical here in this dimension and in this density.
Some of those screenwriters were just having amazing spiritual guided moments. Like they're just nailing it, you know, knocking it right out of the park as far as truth. You know, they're right on money. You know, so it's not that my soul is, my body's having a spiritual experience. It's my spirit is having a physical experience.
That's right. Well, and it's the yin and the yang. Both are. Yep. It's a symbiotic relationship between the two. One needs the other, and the other needs the other to survive. And right. Well, not to survive, but to experience. Because the physical is going to experience the spiritual side of you, and the spiritual side of you is going to experience the physical. Right. Like taste, the five senses, right? Touch, smell, right. Taste, all of that. And spiritually, when you go into that meditative state, you can use that crystal in your dome to access the information that's interconnected in this on this planet through the that electromagnetic field, where everyone's pineal gland, that little dome, that crystal is connected, and thus some of those people that say that they're psychic, they just happen to be able to connect into that. I guess the Ashaic record, I guess it would be called, or the universal records, or what have you. Yeah.
libraries, the galactic plane, you know, a lot of different places.
That's right. And all the knowledge is all there. It's just up to you to access it if you want. And it takes training. Of course, it's going to take years and years of training, meditative training to access that. But some people are just naturally born with that ability that they can just go boom.
I've gone there a couple of times just to figure out what these images on the moon were for. I mean, you know, just you go into train, you don't even know you're going there, but you got to have a question. It's got to be a deep question, like what is going on? You got to really want to know it. And you know, I found one particular time when I came back was the goldfish on the southern part of the moon is damaged. You know, it's not as clear as the, you know, crab or the man's face or the cobra. They're really struggling. Like, why, you know, it's like, why do they put all these pyramids here? And, you know, Mr. Why, like, you know, growing up, it was like, well, why are they doing that? Well, you're not supposed to ask why, you know, so the teachers would always tell me that. But anyways,
because they don't have the answers to give you.
You're not supposed to think like that. What's wrong with you, you know? You're supposed to repeat after me. So anyways, so I'm like, you know, it's the same thing. It's like, what are they doing with all these pyramids? Well, I'm like, well, why would anybody go through all this trouble to put images on the moon? We're talking about images that are 600-700 miles in diameter. We're talking about images that are 1,000 miles from one end to the other.
You can say that these are like the Nazca lines on the moon.
Yeah, they're Nazca lines, but wait until you see these pictures. It'll just blow your mind. If you get it in the book or you go on my YouTube videos, I got two videos that show these images, and there's an artist rendition, and then you can go and once you see the images, like I got, you know, just a plain photograph of the images of the moon, of just a raw moon, no CGI, no you know, PowerPoint, nothing. And once you see them, you go on Google and you look at 1,000 different pictures of moons or wherever, and you will see these images every time you look at it because they're there and they're this as big as day. And you can see them with the cheap telescope or a cheap pair of binoculars. Actually, binoculars are actually better than a telescope. A telescope gets you too close. Some of them, but if you got a real low end optics telescope, isn't that maybe 10 times or something like that? You can you know, really dial in on these amazing geometries. Like the human face on the moon is just beyond everything. I mean, the eye is like 100 miles in diameter.
The man on the moon.
The eye of the man of the moon. You know, Hansu, his lips are about 150 miles. I mean, his ears and his, you know, it's just goes on and on and on. But
there's a rabbit on the moon as well, right?
Yeah, like the Chinese believe the jade rabbits up there, and you know, there's a lot of the ancient you know, history from the indigenous tribes. They all have, like, you know, there's images up there, and they all have some kind of history on the concept of the moon, before the moon, after the moon was here, that type of thing, and life on the planet. So what the moon does, it allows more, going off topic here, but it allows more access to land on Earth than if you didn't have a moon. If you didn't have the moon, you'd have like maybe a smaller, you'd be able to occupy, like, just say, for argument's sake, Australia. Okay, yeah, that'd be the only place.
Because it's going to be squished, right?
It's going to be squished, and currents, and you know, it's just you're not going to have the rotational speed and
that elongatedness of the planet that we have, that bulge that you were talking about earlier, due to the moon, where the tide is pulling trillions of tons pulling it out this way, and it's having that cause and effect on the other side, less gravity, so it's letting go, so it's elongated.
It's slow. It's actually it slows the rotational orbit of the rotational speed of the planet Earth. It'd be like, I forget, I think we'd have 8-hour days. You know, if there wasn't a moon slowing us down, you know, that drag. That gives us a 24-hour day. Bad for corporate America, 8-hour days. But anyway. Anyways, but going on topic there, staying on topic. the images, I did go to the Akashic Records. I woke up, I got into this room, and I was into this room, and it had 4 walls, and the ceiling and the floor were completely stars. Like, so I was looking at the the starry sky, and my feet were looking at the starry sky, but it was like four walls, stuff that I didn't understand, images, glyphs, symbols, all sorts of weird writing that nothing came through. But when I came out of it, I knew, I had a hunch on what the image was on the lower part of the moon. So and then I looked for ancient symbols of the goatfish, because then I said, okay, you got the Tropic of Cancer up northern hemisphere of the Earth, and then reason would dictate that you would have the Tropic of Capricorn in the lower part of the on the Earth. And then lo and behold, I found an old coin from Augustus, the Roman Augustus. He had adopted Capricorn as a symbol. He wasn't even born in the symbol of Capricorn. I think he was born in July or August or something. But anyways, that symbol matched up almost perfectly with what was left of the symbol Capricorn in the southern part of the moon. So anyways, long story short, the moon is also a clock, and you can read it as it's coming up out of the ocean. You can read the the images, and you can tell as we're getting closer to the water maximum, near the glacial maximum. Well, there's a water maximum on the planet, and that'll start rotating the images of the moon itself that we see. Those images will start to rotate, and you'll know that you're at the the focal point of the water maximum. You're at the water maximum peak, and then the ice age is coming in relatively shortly with the tilt. The tilt controls the ice ages in the interglacial period. So going full circle, you go into ice building mode, and then the moon's gravitational tug over 100,000 years transfers from the ocean. As the oceans get smaller and smaller and smaller, it transfers to the massive ice glaciers that are starting to grow and do grow on the continents. And then that drag becomes so intense and so large, it tilts us back to our 23.5 degree tilt that we're at right now. Now, I think it's Pumapuku.
Oh, I got you.
Is it Pumapuku or Tiwanaku that has the gate of the sun?
Tiwanaku, I think.
Well, right now it's 4 degrees off.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, like at the solstice, the equinox, it doesn't line up. It's 4 degrees off. But in the middle of the ice age, we're at 19 degrees. The ice age tilt is 19 degrees. And that house, that opening is perfectly aligned with the sun. And that's an ice age culture. And that's what a lot of the things don't line up perfectly, because that is not the tilt the Earth was in at that particular time when they built it. They built it for an instrumentation. A lot of these megaliths around the planet, it's all instrumentation. It's all reading where we are in these larger cycles. So I keep
in that great year,
yeah,
in that one great.
I keep talking in circles here. My brain's gone. But so in essence, you have a 26,000-year-old clock, which is the precession, and then you have the moon clock, which is 104,000-year clock, an ice age clock. This thing tells you when you're going in and out of the ice ages, as the images change based on the ice-water ratio drags. The moon actually changes. I get into the mechanics. The Earth, unbeknownst to everybody that hasn't read the book, the geophysics community, puts out a gravity signature. And a lot of these shapes and symbols are in the the ancient history of all the ancient tribes and cultures on the planet. They have these symbols. Well, lo and behold, there's a 3-phase gravitational signature that we're in right now, and it's based on the large 3 land masses. So our land masses, our continents, the Himalayas are 5 miles high. Chile, South America, Argentina. I mean, you got, North America, large mountains there, Australia and, Africa. So not so much, Africa doesn't really have large mountains, but it's the biggest geoengineered continent on the planet. We'll get to that later. But anyways, these mountains are actually deflecting the fabric of space, the gravitational, we look at the planet, we got a little tiny atmosphere around the planet, we got a little skin on an apple. But if you look at the fabric of space in your mind, you're actually deflecting the gravitational field. It's a three-phase gravitational field deflection. The ocean is neutral, and then the mountains are positive. So you're bending the gravitational field going out and interacting with the other planets and especially the moon. So the moon is like, so you get three phases. So if you look at your fingers, this is the phases of the moon as the Earth turns. Well, it interlocks with the moon's gravitational.
Oh yeah, like a gear.
If you get into my book, you'll see that the moon has 5 or 6 high density gravitational zones on it, and these high density gravitational zones lock in with that gear that I just talked about that's being created by the Earth spinning. So they mesh in perfectly with each other, and as that signature changes from interglacial period to the ice age, you'll go into actually a 4-phase. You'll grow another finger. So I actually should have just had 3 up for the ice age, but you grab a 4th because the submerged continents in the Pacific, those little islands, Easter Island and Polynesian Islands, and there's a lot of
Tahiti.
There's a lot of islands that are just below the surface of the ocean, maybe 100 feet or so. But once the oceans drop 200-300 feet, these large land masses come into existence, like the Tamu Massive, the largest volcano on the planet. That's I mean, you have a lot more land mass coming up out of the Pacific, and that will, in effect, make a 4th phase, and that will also interact with the moon's gravitational high density zones. So
let me just ask you real quick, is there a connection between earthquakes and volcanoes during the apogee and the perigee of the moon, earth, and the sun cycle?
Yeah, absolutely. Any kind of stress, maximum, minimum, is going to increase and decrease the gravitational torque on Earth, and the epigee and the apogee. It's definitely going to apogee and apogee. I always mix those two up. But
yeah, me too.
especially with the full moon, the phases.
Yeah.
And the Metonic cycle is 18.5-year Metonic cycle, and during it's split 9 years one way and 9 years the other way. But during those those split 9 years, you have periods where the moon is a lot closer to the Earth. Okay, and where it's a lot further away, so it has less effect, and then it has a larger effect as it becomes closer. And then during those maximum and minimum distances that are achieved through the Metonic cycle, you definitely creating it doesn't happen all the time, but you're increasing the percentage of larger earthquakes or volcanic eruption. And because the Earth is going through, an interglacial period, every time the beginning and the end of that Metonic cycle, it's a different Earth. Okay, so when the moon starts its first year of the Metonic cycle, the Earth is different from the previous Metonic cycle because the water levels are higher. The poles are getting larger, so you have a different gravitational effect on plate boundaries, tectonic plate boundaries, and mid-ocean ridges and subduction zones. So it really comes into play. I think the moon's Metonic cycle, the research I did ties into high hurricane seasons, and you'll see if you just split them in 9, split the Metonic cycle into 9 years. And you'll see if you go if you go back to the beginning of the recording of, you can find this stuff on the internet of all the large hurricanes that have hit the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I'm just doing the U.S. because I live here, but you can use this to, you know, you can use it for typhoons and, you know, Southeast Asia, whatever. But, and if you look at it, you'll see that there's a connection in the 9 years. Okay.
For us, it's blizzards up here.
Blizzards. Yeah, right. Blizzards too. Same thing. Yeah, you're getting the blizzard.
Yeah.
So you'll see the beginning, and you'll see these every 9 years. All of a sudden, there's no you know, land hits or anything like that. I'll say, well, what's going on every 9 years? Well, it's the middle of a Metonic cycle. It's the halfway point, and then the moon cuts through, and then it goes back out again. Then you go 9 years out on the other end, and then all of a sudden there's no hurricanes, there's nothing to speak of, no large things, and then like 4 or 5 years into the Metonic cycle, the moon's Metonic cycle on both ends, you know, both halves, I call it. You have a higher percentage of earthquakes. You have a higher percentage of you know, huge storms.
And with persistency as well, with consistency, I should say.
Right. You can. I don't know why, you know, nobody.
You can predict them. You can predict.
The moon's on the pay no never mind list. You know, it's been deleted from the human consciousness. I say moon to people, and they're like, "What?" So anyway, they just don't get it. I'm not saying everyone, but a lot of people are starting to get it. But there's such a connection between the Metonic cycles. And if you're a day trader or you're playing I used to play the market, driving myself crazy. That's why I got into pyramids. I couldn't take it anymore. But yeah, I mean, if you're a future trader in energy, you know, you can make a killing on the Metonic cycle if you followed it and learn to read it and say, okay, I'm going to buy futures in oil this year, or I'm going to buy futures in, you know, hurricanes usually wipe out the you know, oil rigs and you know, refineries, and interrupt you know, what do you call it, international commerce. So you can I'm sure the sharp traders up there on Wall Street or around the world know about it. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of those guys, they've got psychics and astronomers and stuff as consultants, and they're playing the stars. And
yeah.
So I'm sure there's a lot out there who are quite aware.
Every bit helps you, but if you look at this Metonic cycle and the connection between hurricanes and it just flows. It's like clockwork. It's unbelievable. When I found it, I went, oh my God, why did I know this when I was in the market? You know, it's like, because I needed to get into the pyramid.
I'm going to get into the market tomorrow.
Yeah. So
I've got a question here from Closer Encounters, Clarence Mitchell. Here, I'll lead you into this question now. Okay. We know that that a lot of the pyramids around the world are damaged, especially at the Giza pyramid, the Giza plateau. I believe it's the Mankuru pyramid that's got a great big hole that's punched through it. You know, I'm not sure who did that. A lot of people say Napoleon did it, and others say somebody else did it. I'm not quite sure, but fact is that
a belief back in 1200 or something like that.
Punched a hole.
It was an Islamic Salif. He was going to tear down the pyramid.
Yeah.
They were doing it, and it was after a couple of like 20 years. So look, I did the math. It's going to take 1,200 years just to take this one pyramid apart.
That's right. You know? So
it's not financially feasible. So they came up on it. Yeah.
And then we got the Gunung Padang pyramid in Indonesia. It looks like that thing exploded. Then we have the Bosnia pyramid, which all the caverns underneath they were buried because they're digging them out now, right? And then the Teotihuacan, because through the archaeological digs, that thing is damaged in itself. So now the question here from Clarence Mitchell is that, is there a doomsday to any of this if we can't fix the pyramids, or will it just stay the same as it is?
Well, it's, if you follow the the science that I'm putting out on, like, you know, if you step back and start looking at balancing the planet, like what needs to be balanced, you know, the sign of intelligent society is how long your interglacial period is. The dumb ones, all right, the lack of a better word, the ones that don't ascend to a high level of engineering and technology and understanding, their interglacial periods last about 13,500 years, right? Intelligent interglacial societies will get 16,000 years, 16,000 years. So you get 13,000, and smart people get 16,000. So, what governs an interglacial period, the length of an interglacial period, is the ice-water ratio, right? So the higher the water levels get, if you hit the interglacial peak of water or the water maximum, you're going to tilt back into an ice age. You know, game over. Everybody run for the equator. You know, it's not going to make it. You know, both north and south, doesn't matter. You know, everybody's got to go towards the equator. There's very little land in the equatorial region. You know, you have to wait until the water levels drop and more land becomes available, which could be a long time. You know, it could be a couple hundred years. So, all right. So that being said, you know, what you want to manage your planet, you want to manage the melting of the ice sheet, you know, and you know, and slowing that down is paramount. So whether or not,
unlike us today.
Yeah. What's that?
Unlike us today, where our ice sheets are melting so rapidly.
They're burying the technology, killing anybody that threatens the oil economy. You know, there's so many people that have, we don't even know. I mean, how many countless people have just gone missing? You know, the high profile ones, everybody gets a car accident now. You know, or
suicide.
Suicide, yeah. Suicide.
That's pretty popular nowadays.
It used to be a bottle of sleeping pills by his bed. You know,
right.
now it's a car accident for the real big players, or a plane accident, or a suicide for the unknown.
Radiation poisoning.
Yeah. So, you know, as far as like, just say if you just bring it back down to the science that I'm putting out there, that bringing the pyramids back in line to their original design specifications, because with the pyramid you want it to be like a lens. Now, like right now they're you know, they just, you know, the pyramids are damaged. They're not lensing the full capability that they could be if they had the smooth outer casings. You know, just like your glasses. You got glasses, they're all scratched up. They're not lensing properly. You have a damaged lens and you're trying to, like, you know, get the sun's focal point to light a fire, and it's all cloudy. It's not going down to a tight focal point. Same thing. I mean, pyramid science follows optic science real close, very close. And as far as you know, concentrating the gravitational field to a tight focal point. So if we did bring some of these pyramids back to their heyday, to their original design specifications, smooth outer circles, close them up, and I suspect these a lot of these chambers inside the pyramids were used to place high dense material like maybe gold, silver, uranium, lead, to increase the gravitational field in these focal points, and basically displace the gravitational field 180 degrees or below the Hawaiian hotspot and allow more magma to flow out of the Hawaiian hotspot. That would cool down the Pacific, right? Because you're just coming out of a central place and it's basically just growing in an island instead of submerged under the ocean. All this magma is coming up and warming the ocean as we're going through this interglacial period. So you could slow down the warming of the oceans, which is basically paramount to you know, cooling the planet down. So, you know, so you slow down the ice melt, and that stops us going into an ice age tilt. So yes, the answer to the question is yes. If you took what I've put out there and utilize it to cool things down a little bit in the ocean, you could extend the interglacial period and allow access to a larger volume of the planet for life to live on, instead of being condensed down to a smaller portion where life would have to go to survive.
Now, let me ask you this.
Did I answer the question? I think I'm on track there.
Yeah, I think you hit it pretty good.
Okay.
Now, the lens effect from the Giza Plateau to the Hawaiian Cauldron. Now, I was in one of your videos, you showed the image of the world that you said you'd gotten from the European Space Agency, and then you showed that one. The gravity of the planet, and you showed that one area by I think Sri Lanka, or in the Gulf of India, or
Indian Ocean. Yeah.
That's right, up there. Now, is that opposite to that Hawaiian Cauldron, and is causing that low gravity effect there?
Well, no, the Hawaiian hotspot lines up with the the Giza Plateau.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Nile Valley pyramids. What do you got? Dashur and the other place here.
Saqqara.
Saqqara, yeah. You got three pyramids of Saqqara, three pyramids of
Karnak.
And then you got three pyramids in the Giza Plateau. You also have a mountain in the Sudan that actually is perfectly aligned with the Hawaiian hotspot.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, mountains also tie into this lensing manipulation of the gravitational field under the Hawaiian hotspot, the super caldera, or the magma plume, not the super caldera, the magma plume under there. But the low gravitational field in the Indian Ocean is caused by is in alignment with the 300 some odd pyramids in Central America and Belize and a few of those other countries, going from Mexico all the way down to the northern tip of South America. Those pyramids are 180 degrees away from that low gravitational field in the Indian Ocean, which is, there's a large subduction zone there where India is actually being pushed up into the Himalayas. So you have that low gravitational field, which in effect is probably slowing down that advancement. Although, like I said earlier, the tectonic plates are squeezing together right now, raising the Himalayas and pushing India up underneath it. So the answer to the question is it's the pyramids in Central America that line up with that picture of that low gravitational field in the Indian Ocean.
Okay, I got a question here for you from Ildi Baudi. She's asking, there's a theory in that the top of the Great Pyramid was taken to deactivate it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I it's a trapezoid right now. All the pyramids on the planet, for all intent and purpose, are trapezoids. They're not even pyramids without going to that focal point. And my hunch is, and I'm going, just going off of science and going back to the physics of optics. If those caps were put on and the pyramids were brought back, the trapezoid pyramids were brought back to a pyramid shape, a full pyramid shape, that would increase the lensing of the in the center line. And it could increase the gravitational displacement. And I'm going off of another reading, and this was from Edgar Casey. He did a reading, and he was talking about the pyramids, and they said they built them. They were too powerful, and they had to take the tops off. They had to take the tops off. I believe it's in my book. I'm using his words exactly the way he professed it, but he said they had to remove the tops to lower the output.
Because just pushing it right through, and
yeah. So if you take the top off, you don't have that. You don't have that that
funnel
lensing.
Yeah,
that lensing. Now, So I think I think the answer to the question is yes. If you brought the pyramids back up to their points and put the caps on. Now, there's theories that the caps were made of, gold or
crystal,
or some other, lensing, gravitational lensing material that, increased the density of the gravitational force in the center line of the pyramids. You definitely increase the displacement. It's all about displacement. These gravitational, machines that work off of the moon's energy. It's all about displacing the gravitational field under these hot spots and pushing more magma out of these particular places. So you punch a hole through. So like the three big ones that I put on my video, it's Hawaii, Giza, Hawaii, the Sun Pyramid, and Sri Lanka, and that was an outlet. So I mean, these islands were exhaust ports, if you will, at particular moments in the Earth's geological age or these particular times. And then you have the Shen pyramids lining up with the Bermuda supercalderas. It's actually two supercalderas that make up the island there. So I mean, these were built, like I said before, to punch holes and cool the planet down and extend that interglacial period. So again, I don't see us scoring A+ on our interglacial society. We're supposed to be maxing out now. We're way behind. What's saving our butts here and is saving us here from, we possibly could get another 1,000 years out of this interglacial period, not because we're smart. It's because we had a younger Dryas period. Well, if you go back 800,000 years, these ice samples are available to everybody. Go look at them, and you'll see every once in a while there's a younger Dryas event. So I think the last one was maybe previous to this one. There might have been 400,000 years ago. And what the younger Dryas event did is it stopped the ice melting. All right, so basically it gave us a 1,200 or 1,000 year
head start.
1,000 year freeze, where we stopped melting the ice and actually went down into an ice age. It just stalled us. Where previous interglacial periods there was no younger Dryas period. It was just you just warmed up, hit the point, and then you tilted back into an ice age. So there's a potential that we got another 1,000 years. Just using the math of how long the younger Dryas period was. So.
Now, what about the acoustical properties in the Great Pyramid? Like you can go in there and you got the frequency. There's all sorts of other resonance that's happening in there. What are your thoughts on that?
It's I'm not going to say you could. I mean, I was supposed to do an acoustic experiment between the Red Pyramid and Hawaii. For some reason, it just fell apart, and we were going to do Aum in the Red Pyramid for I did the math and how long it was going to take for the sound to go from the pyramid over to the Hawaiian hotspot. I forget what it was. Like we had it was a long time. It was like 4 or 5 hours. So the speed of sound to get there, because the speed of sound is different in air than it is in solid rock. And I forget what I came up for an hour. I don't know what it was. What I came up for a time. Well, it doesn't matter. You can play with these frequencies and sound and do something. Now you could in effect increase the magma output in the Hawaiian hotspot. It might have that effect. It might not have any effect at all, because it's like you're talking about gravity, and gravity is what is the beast that's slowing down the magma flowing out of the Hawaiian hotspot, the energy. I mean, you do have what do you call it? Magma pressure. There's just from thermal activity, but and currents and things of that nature. But I think it's also part of the moon. The moon has a lot to do with it, you know. So yeah, I think, you know, you can do things. I don't think it's the power behind the pyramids. I don't think the sound is. I'm not saying, hey, it's like what's his name with the earthquake machine, Nikola Tesla. Here, an earthquake machine. Now, if you put that earthquake machine, you know, inside of a pyramid, you can split the planet apart. I shouldn't even be talking about this stuff, but there's a car accident tomorrow. But anyways, you get the critical frequency of the planet going on inside of a pyramid, you're gonna have a problem. You know?
Yeah.
I gotta know when to shut up.
I got a question here for you. We'll do another one here. It's coming in from
before my car accident. Yeah, right.
Jeremy Melvin. He's asking, what if the pyramids were designed to tap into the energy of Earth's magnetosphere?
Magnetosphere.
Yeah, magnetosphere. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've kind of gone off the reservation as far as the Earth's magnetic field. I think the Earth's magnetic field is created by the moon. You know, it just because, I mean, if you get into thermodynamics and you get into magnetism, when you heat a magnet up, what you're doing is you're creating a resistance up to the electrons, and they don't flow. You heat a magnet up on a you take a lighter to it, and it's, you know, you basically destroyed it. Cool it down, it works. So I think they're way off course on the Earth's magnetic field. I'm not denying the Earth doesn't have a magnetic field, but I don't think it creates the Van Allen belts, and I don't think I mean, that's a strong magnetic field. I think the moon creates the Van Allen belts. But that's going off topic. And there is a magnetic line on the planet. You can do magnetic tests. Geology, you can chip apart a stone and you can see which way the lines are going. But it's relatively weak. I mean, if it was a strong magnetic field that they're, going 20,000 miles out, you wouldn't even be able to pick up a 10-pound dumbbell off the ground. I mean, it's just like, an iron dumbbell would just stay, on the surface.
Like Thor's hammer.
Yeah, Thor's hammer. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to lift it up. I mean, so I question that, but I do in my book. I'm just going out my theories here. I'm arguing with every theory that's ever come out. It sounds like.
I do the same thing. That's the best way to get answers.
Just walk around and why and no. That's my two words. So getting back to it. The pyramids do. I think the pyramids do have an effect on the position of say magnetic north. It wanders up there. It's 100 miles around.
Yeah, I think it's in Manitoba right now.
Its natural state is, and it's all based on the ice water ratios. As the ice in the planet changes, that also affects the magnetic field's location. I think it was a long time ago. It was like, I think magnetic north was in Canada someplace, up in the Hudson Bay, if I'm not mistaken. And
Manitoba.
Yeah, Manitoba, possibly someplace up there. And now it's closer to the North Pole, but it's it's going to Siberia. I think it stopped. It was moving, and they had to change some runway alignment, magnetic alignments on runways for landing, I think, in all the airports around the globe, because it's so far off, because they do use the Earth's magnetic clock, if you will, a direction for the GPS and landing computers. So 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 I think they definitely have something to do with locking magnetic north into true north. And I also, like I said earlier, I think the fact that Antarctica is a hexagon, it's a large pyramid down there for the subatomic flow that slows down the subatomic world from reaching singularity. You're reaching singularity in a planet, but if you can cause a differential in the flow of singularity from the north and south pole into the center of the planet, then you're locking in the magnetic field. It's not going to, we're not going to have a pole swap. And the reason we're not going to have a pole swap, I think the last geoengineering job was done 800,000 years ago. Going back to the last pole swap was 800,000 years ago. Common sense would dictate that the pyramids were rebuilt, reshaped, put in the specific alignments and in place on the planet.
Yeah, because it's in the center of all landmass. Pyramids are built at the center of all landmass on Earth as well, right? Like all the land. Yeah.
Yep. A lot of those places, they're like I think Giza happens to be in the center of the landmass in the northern hemisphere.
Yeah. Do you think, like you were saying earlier, they raised the land and put the pyramids on top of that. So the entire area may be just artificially designed, as you were pointing out earlier on here in our talk.
Yeah, it's like getting to the 3 points for the pyramids: raise land, pull up water, and punch holes in tectonic plates, control magma. Like some pyramids pull the magma up to them too close, and they will cause an explosion. Like you can go into the pyramids in Egypt. I don't know if it's the Red Pyramid or the Bent Pyramid. One of it's hydrogen sulfide, which is an explosive gas. It has that explosive gas smell. Now there was a pyramid north of the Giza Plateau. You see that it's gone. It blew up. So you could have a buildup of gas. Because you are playing with magma, and you're also playing with, getting into. We're talking about oil. If you look at the pyramids, you got a string of pyramids going up the Nile Valley, and right across the Nile Valley, you get the Red Sea. You're into Saudi Arabia, the largest oil fields on the planet, right? Mm-hmm. So you have an ocean of fresh water right up underneath the pyramids, but
Sahara Desert.
But in effect, that could have also pulled the oil up in the Saudi Arabia indirectly. The U.S. built a giant pyramid out there. This is Dakota or someplace out there, and then a decade later, we've magically discovered a trillion barrels of oil. Down the road for a couple hundred miles away from this pyramid that they built. They said, I don't know if you know that pyramid.
No,
it was built by the National Defense of the.
In which state?
It was it escapes me now, but it's a massive concrete pyramid. It's not as big as.
There's a pyramid in California.
No, this one was built. I think it's
San Francisco. I think.
Was it? Yeah. I was talking to a lot of people out in San Francisco with this drought. I was saying, you guys need to build some pyramids, man. You're not managing your groundwater tables.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta build the pyramids, and when that moon comes over, it pulls the groundwater up. You ain't got no pyramids. That's just going down and flowing out wherever you guys are robbing it from with all the wells and.
Yeah, that could very well be the case with all that water. There's more fresh water underneath the Sahara Desert than there is in all of the lakes combined. Right. On planet Earth, taking its lakes, rivers, what have you, and there's more fresh water underneath there, and that's one of the reasons. What's his name? Muammar Gaddafi had a plan to drill in to this water source to give to his people.
Right.
But I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because it's getting all politics and off course here. But we'll leave that. That alone for another day. It's just bad. Bad news over there. Now, you were saying the explosion of the pyramid, and I automatically thought of Gunung Padang. Do you think that may have happened there? Because you look at where Gunung Padang is, and then you see all that volcanic activity that's happening in the ancient Sundaland, Philippines, Indonesia, just in that area. Do you think that that pyramid was built to do exactly that? Like you were saying earlier on, in Antarctica, there's a pyramid over here, and there's an effect effect happening over here. So could it be that Gunung Padang is over here, and the effect is taking place right next door, trying to control all that magma and earthquakes and the tectonic movements that are happening down there?
Yeah, the thing with controlling magma, you know, because it's like you can look at a pyramid as a volcano seed in some aspect. You know, you don't want to seed a volcano, you know, if you can avoid it. But at the same point, if you're in a very seismic active area like you were just talking about, I'm having trouble pronouncing.
Gunung Padang. I think that's how. Yeah, I think that's how it's pronounced. I'm not. I'm just winging it. I'm just winging it.
Right, but I think, yeah. But so you want to get, you know, you want to get your water, but sometimes you'll tap into natural gas. Excuse me, natural gas and you know, sulfide coming off of magma currents, and you have a buildup under these pyramids. You know, pyramids always get hit with lightning. You know, there's a lot of electrical activity on pyramids. So it's not if you have an explosive gas buildup, you're going to have an ignition source. A pyramid is a natural ignition source with a lightning strike. So that could have very well have been what caused that thing to blow up. You know, and as far as that particular pyramid and the one north of Giza, you know, so definitely a potential, you know. Yeah.
Very cool, very cool. What an enlightening talk this evening was. You said earlier on that you're an independent publisher, so you know, why don't you tell the crowd where people can order your book and how they can learn more about this radical theory that you have that really makes a whole ton of sense to me. And I'm sure it makes a ton of sense to people that are watching. What I would suggest is after this interview, go to your YouTube channel, subscribe to it, and then you hit the videos and just start watching. That's what I did.
Just chill back, just chill out. I got like 50 videos. Pyramid gravity forces on the book, and then the moon. You know, all my moon videos. The end of the video or underneath the video itself, when you know, for the what do they call it? What's the video about?
Description.
Explanation. Yeah, the explanation. I have the websites, so you can just click on the websites, check out the website for pyramid gravity force, and that's the website, pyramidgravityforce.com. And TSAT Moon, which is the abbreviation for there is something about the moon.com. And like I said, both of them are on underneath the explanation, or at the end of the video, I have the websites. You can check out the books. The books are good. I got a lot of good feedback, you know, and I'm having a second edition coming out on pyramid gravity force. I've just about finished because it's, you know, when I first started when I came across the theories and everything, you just put out what you have, you know what I mean? You're just throwing it out there, and that's all I got. And, you know, I hit the book here, and you can see the moon. You know, I got 2 books published, and they both have a moon on it. So it's, you know, you get the pyramid and, you know, the volcano. So you get the, you know, the graphics are right on I was on target when I designed that particular graphic. And then the other one is, you know, got the crescent moon on it. But you know, you go to my YouTube channel, it's John Shaughnessy. I got a lot of topics, you know. I'm into the H blocks. I'm into the moon. I'm into the pyramids. I'm into, you know, a lot of other, you know, geophysics and you know, different forces and gravity. And I'm also challenging Milutin Milankovitch, which is the leading theory that the scientific community has embraced as what causes the interglacial and ice periods. And I'm challenging it with the moon. You know, the moon is more of a right in your face. This is what's going on every day, you know, and it's real common sense. So, you know, Milutin, a genius, he was born in Serbia, same place Tesla was. He was at that particular time, he had, he did everything he could do, great ideas and everything. But I think there's no actual proof that his theories ever happened. Okay, now, I present the moon, and you can go out and go to the ocean and watch the tide go in and out.
That's right.
And they're telling you that, you got a gravitational drag from the moon because the ocean's getting bigger, so it's slowing down the orbital speed. So there's more nuts and bolts, meat and potatoes in the moon theory on what drives the interglacial than in his theory, where he thinks that the orbit goes from elliptic to circular around the sun, and most theoretical physicists will tell you it's not going to lower the BTU input, whether it's circular or elliptical. At the sun's, you're still getting the same BTU input.
Yeah.
But change the tilt, and you can see the change of a good way to reference the tilt is when you see the extremes from the winter solstice in the southern hemisphere and the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere. That it's not the Earth tilting, but it's actually, you get a good gauge of what happens when you lose light because of the travel of the planet.
But if we work that onto the great year, then we can really.
So if you lose 4 degrees on your 23.5, you can see you're going to plunge into an ice age.
Yeah.
So it's going to make a big difference in the total BTUs absorbed from the sun. But yeah, I appreciate you having me on, man. It's been great.
Great talk.
I hope it made sense.
Oh, you totally did. I've been watching you for about past couple of weeks. I've been just hard on your videos, and my wife and I were sitting here, and it's very educational. We're laughing. We're laughing the way you present your
I try to have some fun. I try to like it.
Yeah. I love it. Amy loves it. We just sit here laughing and learning, and it's like, wow, this is great stuff. You're going to talk to this guy? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to talk to this guy in about a week. Maybe. It's like, that's going to be fun. All day today,
I try to keep it serious with the interview, so because I know people want to hear. I don't goof around too much. Yeah.
All day today, I was like, oh, I'm stoked. I can't wait. Come on, hurry up, 5 o'clock. Hurry up. And I'm out there harassing my son. Can you wait? He's like, no, I can wait. And I was like, I can't wait.
I worry this stuff's falling asleep. Is it coming? Am I going to be able to, retain all this stuff? And it's like, it just comes right back,
Yeah, it's fantastic stuff. Fantastic.
Yeah, really appreciate you having me on, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, not a problem. I look forward to having you on again.
Yeah, let's do it again.
You can't cover everything at once. I was thinking maybe next time we can touch on the H blocks. That's quite the enigma that nobody can figure out. So maybe we can touch on that. So thank you very much for your time here this evening. Because I know over there it's it's 8 o'clock here.
Thanks all the viewers for hanging in there and giving us the time. Appreciate it. I'm on Facebook. You can friend me on Facebook, or email me on my links on the on my pages, on my book pages. I'm pretty. And
your Facebook groups? Can you throw a shout out for your Facebook groups?
Yeah, I got there is something about the moon group, and then I just have my John Shaughnessy personal Facebook page, and then I have Pyramid Gravity Force book page. So so you can
There you go, guys. You heard it. Go and.
Plenty of stuff, plenty of written material. It's all out there, just pushing it out there, giving it away. There it is, So,
go and join the group after this broadcast here, and also go and visit John Shaughnessy's websites, and also subscribe to his YouTube channel, and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, Watchers Talk.
Now, one more thing. I'll be speaking in Chicago in the second International Pyramid Conference, and that's this September 2018. And then also I'll be out with Bruce Cunningham and Klaus Donner in April of 2019 in Angkor Wat.